We'll begin with a little crash course on MDOC Organization. So we'll start out talking about vertical hierarchy, which isn't specific to Michigan Department of Corrections. Pretty much all governmental agencies, actually most places of employment, have a vertical hierarchy. Okay, so vertical means up and down. Hierarchy means what? Okay, a tiered structure of supervision, right?
Yeah, supervision.
Yes, that's very good. I like that. And that's very close. It's a chain of command, or you could call it a pecking order. So I have the humorous depiction of the pecking order or vertical hierarchy that you might find in a police agency, largely because I couldn't find one for corrections. But you kind of get it. Perhaps you've heard that old slogan, that old saying, crap runs downhill. That saying comes from the vertical hierarchy. See how this happens? The higher up you are, the less crap you get on you. And the people on the very bottom get crapped on the most. Yeah, that's what we call a bureaucracy, for those of you who are sociology sorts. So it operates from the top down. It is militaristic in style, at least in the criminal justice field. And you have a clearly defined chain of command, right? You can see who's in charge of who all the way up. So it provides a clear line of authority. You know who your boss knows who their boss is, they know who their boss is, and so on up. And we can trace that line of authority all the way down in Michigan Department of Corrections, all the way down from the governor to the director of Michigan Department of Corrections, and right on down. We're not going to get into all of that. I'd like to focus more on the micro level, what it looks like inside of a prison instead. So here is an example of how a prison may be organized. This varies by prison. So this isn't set in stone, but it's probably a pretty good depiction. So you see custody, housing, and programs, all overseen by a deputy warden, maybe some assistant deputy wardens. And then, of course, the warden runs the whole show. Every prison has a warden. They have deputy wardens, they have assistant deputy wardens. Oh, don't worry, dear, you have this in your course pack. So I'm going to break this down. There are 3 separate career tracks that you can follow if you go to work in a prison. 3 separate career tracks. You've got custody, housing, and programs. A lot of people think, oh, well, you work in a prison, you're just a corrections officer, and that's it. Oh, no. Oh, no. There's lots and lots of different stuff you can do in a prison. And not all of it involves wearing a uniform or going through an academy. So I'm just throwing that out. The Department of Corrections has a lot of opportunities for everybody. So let's start with custody. Custody, remember, custodial officer, custodial staff, custody. Having custody of the inmates refers to uniformed staff who remain on shift work, but at this point in time, do not require any additional education to advance. To become a corrections officer with Michigan Department of Corrections, really all you need is your 15 credits in corrections, criminal justice, psychology, sociology, right? Human services. And that's really it. That's all you need to get in. If you do not desire to go any further in college, you don't have to, and you can still promote up. For example, you see a sergeant posting. So you apply to take the sergeant's test, right? You study really hard for the sergeant's test, and if you score well, they'll invite you to interview for the position. And if you interview well, then you get that position. Later on, maybe a lieutenant's opening comes up. So you study really hard for the lieutenant's exam. You take the exam. If you score really well, they call you for an interview. If you interview really well, you get that position. And it's the same for the captain. In the custody track, though, you will always wear a uniform, your uniformed staff, and you're going to be on that 6 on, 2 off rotating schedule that most prisons are still following. So 6 days on, 2 days off. And you could be on first shift or second shift or third shift. So that's the caveat here, is you don't need any additional education, but you're always going to be on shift work and always wear a uniform. And if that doesn't bother you, that's great. A lot of people, in fact, don't promote past corrections officer because there's so much overtime, they can make a lot of money. I know corrections officers, James is nodding his head because his family's all in corrections.
Yeah, my dad been a corrections officer for almost 30 years.
Yeah, I know most corrections officers are making over $60,000 on the low end. I know officers that are making 80 and 90. So why would you promote if you can make that much money as a CO, right? So you don't have to. This is my point. You can go as far as you want or not. You can become a corrections officer, remain a corrections officer, and have a great career. Or if you want to promote, you can do that too. Housing. Question.
So, being a corrections officer, are you saying that there is more time for overtime than if you were like a lieutenant or?
Yes. Yes, there's a lot more overtime. Housing refers to some uniformed staff who remain on shift work, but requires a college degree to advance to a non-shift work position like case managers and resident unit manager. So you can be a corrections officer in a housing unit, and that's where you work, that's your permanent assignment. But that puts you in line, if you desire, and if you have the education, your bachelor's degree, to promote up to either case manager or beyond that, resident unit manager. And pay grade wise, don't take this to the bank, but case managers are in the ballpark of a lieutenant's pay. And resident unit managers who oversee all of the housing unit are in the ballpark of captain's pay. But you need a bachelor's degree. Now the bonus of being a case manager or a resident unit manager is you're not in uniform anymore. You'll wear business clothes. You'll wear dress pants and a nice shirt with buttons on it. Or a business suit if you desire. And you're pretty much working Monday through Friday with weekends and holidays off now. Which for some people has a great appeal. Because when you're on shift work, 6 days on, 2 days off, you're going to miss a lot of holidays with your family. You're going to miss out on a lot of stuff. So some people say, well, I'm going to get my bachelor's degree and I'm going to promote up. And now, mostly Monday through Friday with weekends and holidays off, that's not a bad gig. And you're not in a uniform anymore. So I'm just throwing that out there. That's an option. The final track is programs. Programs refer to non-uniform staff whose positions require specific college degrees to be hired. So you're hiring in for a position. No academy is required for these positions. They'll send you to some security training so you don't get yourself or somebody else hurt, so you know what time it is, but you don't have to go through the corrections academy. They are largely Monday through Friday business day jobs, mostly, and many positions exist. I'm only showing a few of them here. There are a lot of them. So I've got the library, right? Librarian would have to have a Master of Science degree in library science. And if you had that degree, then you could apply to work in a prison library. They pay very well. School personnel, school teachers. I get a lot of students that change their majors from criminal justice to education. And here's the funny thing. They're really kind of the same thing. I mean, education is the front end of criminal justice because if they do their job right in education, we don't get them in criminal justice. You've prevented the problem. How cool would it be to take your education degree and put it to work with offenders so that when they get out, they have options and it pays really well? prisoner work classification, recreation, chaplain, special activities coordinator. I mean, there's a huge list here. And it's all position driven. You have that degree in that field, and then you can apply to work in a prison. So you can see there are lots of things that you can do in a prison. I didn't put medical on there, I didn't put dental, there's a whole bunch of stuff.